The only time I ever cried in an office was when my left eye literally bled from stress. Not metaphorically. Real blood. Looked like I'd been punched by the ghost of burnout. That was 3 months into the rebuild, and nobody even noticed. They just kept asking if I could tighten up the sprint velocity, like I was some kind of human ratchet wrench. That should have been my sign to run. But no, like a damn fool, I stayed. The platform I inherited was a Frankenstein monster built from deprecated plugins, duct-taped APIs, and prayers whispered into Jira tickets. It was held together by coffee, legacy debt, and a dev named Kurt who hadn't updated his IDE since Obama's first term. They wanted me to gut it, rebuild it from scratch, do it fast, and somehow do it with a team composed of 2 juniors, one guy who only worked evenings because he traded crypto by daylight, a part-time UX designer who communicated exclusively in TikToks. They called it the New Horizon Initiative. I called it rebuilding the Titanic mid-sync with IKEA instructions. But I said yes. Why? Because they said the magic words, completion bonus. It was written right there in the contract, buried under 10,000 words of HR-scented boilerplate. If I could hit all the deliverables by Q2, slap 25 grand into my bank account, and let me lead the next product cycle as head of platform engineering. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a ticket out of code monkey hell and into the room where decisions got made. So I threw myself in. Weeknights disappeared. Weekends, ghosted. I stopped replying to my partner's texts around February. My cat took to sleeping on my keyboard just to get some attention. And still, I kept coding, factoring the authentication tree, cleaning out garbage cron jobs that had been silently failing since 2017, replacing third-party vendor integrations so broken they sent happy 2016, in their API headers. And yeah, I started a private repo. Nothing shady, just contingency plans, fail-safes, a few backdoor diagnostic hooks, a credential handshake loop that would flag unauthorized revocations, kind of stuff you only build if you've lived through enough tech betrayals to tattoo GitHub's 500 error on your soul. By the way, if you're still reading and you've ever been blindsided by a Zoom call with HR, or had a manager circle back right over your career, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 10,000 followers so I can finally tell these stories without needing a damn NDA. Consider it revenge. Make it algorithm-friendly. Anyway, by the end of month 6, the system actually sang. Login speeds dropped from 6 seconds to under 1. Data pipelines flowed like fresh concrete. The dashboard looked like it belonged to a real company, not a Craigslist contractor from 2008. The junior devs finally stopped asking me what dependencies meant. Even crypto guys started committing before 11 a.m. Progress. And management, they were glowing. The best thing that's happened to this team in years, said Joel, the CTO, in one of our rare one-on-ones. We can't wait to see you grow here, said Diane from HR, who pronounced Kubernetes like it was a type of wine. Every milestone review I hit, every beta test, passed. Every integration, deployed clean. I even managed to convince legal not to nuke our GDPR compliance by storing session logs in a Google Sheet. It was riding a high I hadn't felt since my college hackathon team accidentally built something VC-worthy. But somewhere around the start of Q2, things started to shift, and the platform wasn't the only thing about to reboot. It started with a Slack message from a junior VP named Travis, fresh out of Wharton, hairline, already retreating from the stress of pretending to understand code. Hey, just wanted to say how proud I am of our progress. A real team effort, huh? Our progress. I hadn't seen him in a single stand-up. The only contribution I'd ever seen him make was misspelling cash in a product strategy doc, and then doubling down that it was a marketing term. But suddenly, he CC'd on everything, forwarding my sprint reports, rewording my architecture notes in deck slides with his name as lead strategist. His LinkedIn sprouted a line, spearheading end-to-end rebuild of proprietary cloud platform. I almost choked on my burnt coffee. Then Joel, the CTO, started ghosting me. No more one-on-ones. No feedback on my milestone recaps. The man who once pinged me fire after a successful rollout now forwarded my emails to operations with a cryptic, let's route through delivery. Delivery? I was the delivery. Instead of decisions, I got middlemen. Project updates began trickling through a BizOps guy named Craig, who thought front-end referred to office reception. Everything became a game of broken telephone, recommendations diluted, bugs delayed, Priorities were prioritized. I flagged 3 critical launch dependencies in Jira, SSL certs, failover logic, and a silent auth loop that still timed out for legacy accounts. Nothing sexy, just necessary. And what did I get back? Let's document and delegate. Focus on the big picture, Craig wrote like a motivational poster in hell. Big picture? They'd asked me to build a house and were now handing my blueprints to a toddler with a crayon. Something stank. Travis started showing up in engineering sinks, muted, camera off, lurking like a fungus. When I asked direct questions, he'd unmute and throw out lines like, "I trust the team to execute," or worse, "Let's circle back." Meanwhile, Diane from HR, my old coffee buddy, stopped waving at me in the hallway. Eye contact, gone. Slack emoji reactions, vanished. A creeping fog settled in. I wasn't being included, I was being phased out, but I wasn't stupid. I added a small enhancement. Subtle, elegant. A user validation step tucked between 2 token exchange processes. It looked like a harmless delay timer, maybe something to throttle login bursts or manage concurrency, kind of thing no one questions unless they really know what it's doing. In reality, it was watching, listening, waiting. It tied into my credentials at a low level and cross-checked revocation flags on privileged users. If someone tried to cut me out improperly, without the right tear-down sequence, without honoring the exit protocols I'd laid out, it would trigger a silent cascade. Nothing malicious, nothing illegal, just inconvenient. Think of it like a keyless car. You can push the start button all you want, but without the fob nearby, you're not going anywhere. I called it subroutine 37. That's it. No flashy names, no comments. Just a whisper embedded in the heart of the system, one that only cared about one thing, me. And still, I played the part. Woke up every day, logged into Zoom with a smile, kept my docs pristine, my commits clean. I wasn't going to give them a single excuse, but deep down, knew what they were building. A launch without me. A celebration I wouldn't be invited to. And that's when I started preparing my own kind of party. It came as a Google Calendar invite at 7:12 a.m., titled Quick Sync HR plus Joel. No agenda, no prep. Just a 30-minute slot carved out right between my morning coffee and the daily deployment queue. My stomach twisted the second I saw it. Quick Sync is corporate for we're about to screw you without unzipping our pants. I joined the call on time. Diane from HR was already there, tight smile, overly perky voice like she was hosting a daytime game show where the grand prize was unemployment. Joel, the CTO, popped in 2 minutes late. His camera was off. "Hey there," Diane began, eyes darting like she was searching for the exit on her own Zoom screen. "We just wanted to touch base real quick. Thank you for hopping on," I nodded, unmuted. "Sure. What's this about?" Joel coughed, not the normal kind. The kind that says I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but I also don't want to be the one not saying it. He didn't speak. Diane did so. "First off, we really want to acknowledge all your incredible work on the New Horizon platform. Truly, it's been invaluable. That said, we've hit some unexpected financial constraints heading into Q2, and unfortunately, we're going to have to part ways with some members of the team, including you, just like that. A year of work, hundreds of hours. System design, rebuild, optimization, late-night debugging sessions that left my eyeballs vibrating. And I was a line item in a spreadsheet now, a cost center, something to part ways with. I didn't blink. I didn't argue, I just asked, effective when? Immediately, Diane chirped like she was offering me a massage coupon. "Be sending over the severance paperwork shortly. 2 weeks of pay, standard NDA and offboarding checklist." Joel finally unmuted. Will ensure access is transitioned smoothly. Appreciate everything." This was not easy. I looked at his little bubble. The same man who told me I was the linchpin of the platform now couldn't look me in the eye. "And the completion bonus?" I asked. Diane paused. "Right. So, since the platform technically hasn't launched yet, your role is ending prior to that milestone. The bonus clause is unfortunately inapplicable." I smiled. Just a small one, enough to make Diane shift in her chair. "Understood," I said, voice flat, like I was confirming a dinner reservation, not swallowing a loaded gun. They ended the call in under 7 minutes. I sat there for another 10, just staring at the screen. No tears, no yelling, just that cold, vibrating hum behind my eyes, kind of rage that calcifies into strategy. Then I got up, poured myself the last of my shitty store-brand coffee, opened my laptop. One by one, I logged out of Slack, Zoom, and Jira, archived my folders, downloaded my portfolio, And then, with surgical precision, I opened my dev environment and found key node DPL37, deployment authentication fallback key, tied to my laptop, my credentials, my fingerprint. I clicked delete. A warning prompt. No, are you sure? Just poof, gone. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't even irreversible. It was just incomplete, like taking the spark plugs out of a car and handing someone the keys. The engine might look ready, the dashboard might light up, but when you press the gas, nothing but silence. I zipped up my hoodie, packed up my hard drive, and walked out of that shared workspace with the calm of someone who'd just left a chessboard mid-match, knowing the other player had no idea they were 3 moves from checkmate. They wanted me gone before launch. Fine, but I'd built the launch, and they'd just fired the ignition switch. I disappeared like I'd never existed. No dramatic posts, no vague booking, no on to new adventures LinkedIn essay soaked in passive-aggressive gratitude. Just silence. I shut it all down, Slack, GitHub profile, company email. Scrubbed my presence like a forensic cleaner at a murder scene. One moment, I was the architect of their digital future. The next, I was a ghost in their server logs. I didn't want them to know what I was doing. Hell, I didn't even want them to guess. Because if there's one thing you learn in tech, it's that panic doesn't start with a scream, it starts with the absence of noise. Inside the company, the bugs began to crawl out. It started small, permission pings, failing in the staging environment. Test accounts started locking up for no reason. A QA lead submitted a ticket that admin roles were reverting to read-only status without prompt. Weird, inconsistent stuff, not flashy, just irritating enough to feel like gremlins had moved in. Engineers assumed it was regression, a race condition, maybe some bad YAML. They ran a few hotfixes, rolled back one commit, then another. Nothing stuck. From what I heard, secondhand through a sympathetic junior dev who hadn't yet scrubbed my number, Joel called it pre-launch jitters. Said things always get weird before a rollout. The system just needs to settle. Settle, like the code was having an existential crisis and needed a nap. Meanwhile, Travis, the VP, started pushing for a hard launch window. Sent out some all-staff email talking about how the product was primed for impact and market-ready. The same product that, behind the curtain, had an authentication layer acting like it was on shrooms. I watched the chaos unfold from we worked 2 floors above a bubble tea shop, sipping cold brew and assembling my portfolio like it was a war journal. I had every right to do it. Not just the legal right, my contract was clean, my access fully terminated, and my code contributions logged, credited, and versioned. But the moral right? That was murkier, somewhere between justice and vengeance. Between I warned them and I dared them. That twinge of guilt, it came late at night when the caffeine wore off and the quiet came crawling in. When I'd think about the devs still inside, the ones who didn't know they were pawns in someone else's cover-up. The ones who'd stayed up late with me squashing bugs and brainstorming schema changes. But then I'd remember Diane's smile. Joel's silence, Travis taking credit for a system he couldn't even spell. And the guilt would dissolve like sugar in bourbon. My portfolio was coming together, clean, elegant, annotated, architecture diagrams, load test results, performance benchmarks, a before and after shot of the dashboard UI that looked like a rags to riches story. I wasn't just showing off what I'd built. I was proving what they'd lost, just in case. Because something told me this wasn't over. Something told me the real fireworks hadn't even started. And when they did, I wanted to be watching. It hit the wires at 8:00 a.m. sharp. NextGen Corp proudly launches its fully redesigned platform, engineered for speed, scalability, and seamless customer experience. They even used one of my design mock-ups for the hero image. Stripped my watermark, slapped some blue gradients on it, and called it visionary. By 8:07, Twitter, X was already coughing up smoke. Users couldn't log in, not just a few, all of them, every single one, resetting passwords, broken, social logins, dead, MFA handshakes, looping into oblivion like a hamster wheel made of disappointment. I refreshed the error logs on their public API, don't ask how I had them bookmarked, and watched the 500s and 403s pile up like dead birds at a wind farm. By 8:18, subreddit had its first Meltdown post. Is anyone else locked out of their account? All my saved data is gone. At 8:31, someone in support posted a canned reply about scheduled maintenance. At 8:32, the same person deleted the post. By 9:00, the press release was quietly taken down from the homepage. Somewhere across the city, Joel was probably sweating into a $70 shirt, trying to spin the dashboard like it wasn't melting in front of him. And melt it did. Internal tools were reporting session IDs cross-mapping between users. A gym franchise owner in Omaha somehow ended up viewing customer data from a spa in Tallahassee. Error flags triggered security protocols, which triggered auto lockouts, which fed back into the system's watchdog. And boom, a beautiful recursive panic loop. Then came the kicker. Joel tried logging into the admin panel. Access denied. He tried again. Same result. Backdoor credentials expired. Dev override token invalid. Root recovery user not recognized. The gate he locked me out of had slammed on his own damn fingers. Because the core credential logic, the very sequence that authenticated superadmins, ran through a validation node I'd embedded months ago. Subroutine 37. And guess whose credential fingerprint it was keyed to? Mine. They never bothered to review the fallback path. Never audited the nested function stack that handled access tiers. Never even questioned why a system this robust was working so flawlessly right up until I left. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching it swirl like a black hole of poetic justice. In the WeWork lounge, a guy across from me was pitching a dog-walking app. I smiled at him. He smiled back. No one knew that 5 blocks away. An entire company was imploding from a line of code tied to a woman drinking single-origin Colombian and casually polishing her resume. My phone buzzed, 3 LinkedIn messages from recruiters. One of them asked, "Were you involved with the New Horizon build? Impressive architecture." I didn't answer. I just closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. The fuse had burned. The detonation had landed, and the real fun was just beginning. By noon, office was a corporate thunderdome. Slack threads exploded like fireworks, with managers flinging blame like hot potatoes wrapped in HR-safe language. Travis, the walking haircut with a VP title, started things off by tagging the dev team, who pushed code without QA sign-off. Immediately, 2 junior engineers, both barely out of their onboarding phase, fired back with screenshots of commit logs. One of them highlighted a neatly formatted Confluence page titled Final Deployment Architecture Auth Layer. Authored by her full name. Last modified 3 days before they fired her. Status, pending oversight transfer awaiting confirmation. Oops, someone else dug up her Slack message from a month ago warning that the backup system was read-only. Designed to observe, not replace, like a camera in a car crash. It could show you the moment your tires left the road. It couldn't stop the slide. By 1:15, a different manager replied, "Did we ever finalize the handoff?" Silence. The backup plan they were relying on, useless. It couldn't generate new sessions, couldn't modify credential trees, and it sure as hell couldn't restore corrupted admin mappings. All it did was sit there and politely tell you what used to work. The CTO, now deep in triage hell, tried to act like he was orchestrating a fix. The access logs showed he'd been locked out for hours. Every admin override bounced off the credential wall like a tennis ball lobbed at a vault door. Somewhere in all that screaming and digital paper shuffling, the CFO stomped into the mess. Rumor has it he threatened legal action. Said words like intellectual property, contract breach, and willful sabotage. Probably shouted them into a phone while staring down a graph that looked like a ski slope from hell. Here's the problem with swinging threats in a room full of liars. Someone always checks the paperwork. And the paperwork, flawless. Her contract had no IP clause binding post-departure control. Her documentation had clearly marked escalation points. Every warning she'd issued was time-stamped, delivered, and ignored. She didn't trigger a failure. She built a system that expected continuity, and when they broke that chain, the system responded exactly as it was designed to. By 2:00 p.m., she was back at her desk with a ginger tea, rereading a message that had just popped up on LinkedIn. "Hey, did you build the New Horizon platform? Incredible design. We're hiring at Velocity X. Can we talk?" Her smile was small, detached. Not smug, she wasn't the villain here. She didn't rig a bomb. She just knew that when you cut the head off a system, the body twitches. That's not malice, that's physics. Still, there was one moment that genuinely made her pause. A dev had posted a screen from the public API docs. The changelog, there it was, clear as day. 2024 to 02 to 13 added credential-linked access validator for enhanced admin security. Authored by her name, reviewed by Joel the CTO. Approved, white heavy checkmark public, traceable, immutable. They'd signed off on the very mechanism that locked them out. All those meetings they skipped, all the demos they ghosted. Every time she warned them that half measures wouldn't cut it, logged, tracked, burned into digital stone. And now, with the whole world watching, that changelog wasn't just documentation. It was a monument to her. The first call came in at 4:12 p.m., unknown number, local area code. She let it ring, then rang again, then again. By the fourth time, she picked up. "Hello, hey, just wanted to check in," came the oily voice of Travis, suddenly very interested in sounding casual. "Bit of a hiccup on our end today. Nothing major. But I thought it might be helpful to have you hop on a quick call, maybe lend a little guidance." She didn't even try to mask her silence. Let it hang long enough to make him squirm. When she finally spoke, it was with the exact tone you used to scrape gum off a shoe. "Want me to clean up the mess you made by firing me a week before launch?" Travis cleared his throat. "I wouldn't put it like that. We're just looking to bring in some continuity." He paused. For the team." Click, she hung up. 16 minutes later, Joel called. Different number. No voicemail, just a text. "We're prepared to discuss consulting terms. Please advise availability." Now they were speaking her language. By 6:00 p.m., sent over a single-page PDF titled Emergency Recovery Engagement Terms. 3 bullet points. $900/HR. 3-hour minimum 50% payment upfront via wire transfer. Emergency billing tier applies for response within 24 hours. No negotiation. No favors. No friendly help. They signed within the hour. She arrived the next morning dressed not for revenge, but for business. Crisp blazer. Clean boots. Are sharp enough to draw blood. When she walked through the glass doors of the office she'd once bled for, no one spoke. The reception desk was manned by a temp who looked terrified to even ask her name. She didn't offer it, just flashed her badge, still active somehow, and let herself in. Conference room B, Joel, Travis, Diane from HR. A few engineers pretending to look busy while quietly praying she'd save their jobs. She sat, opened her laptop, said nothing. Joel stammered, "We, appreciate you coming in." She looked at him like he was a poorly documented API. "I need a clean environment, isolated endpoint access, and no one touches anything until I say so," she said. "Also, your VPN is leaking credentials. That's not my problem, but it will be if you ignore it." They nodded like bobbleheads. She got to work. 30 minutes later, the system was humming. Credentials rerouted. Session data integrity restored. Admin access returned, with 2FA this time, because clearly no one had read her original documentation. Then came the final move. She ran a diagnostic audit on the credential tree, pulled up a tamper log she'd embedded months ago as part of subroutine 37, hidden in a utility class buried under 3 innocuous-looking methods titled things like string sanitize helper. On screen, timestamps, IP addresses, commit hashes. One entry highlighted in red, manual modification of validator protocol 3/14, 9:42 a.m., right after her termination. Joel squinted. "What is that?" "That," she said, "is proof someone tried to disable my access logic without authorization. Post-deployment, post-firing." She tapped a key. The audit log exported itself into a zip, encrypted with a passphrase only she knew. A digital middle finger sealed in metadata. Across the table, Diane's face drained like expired toner. She unplugged her laptop, slid a printed invoice across the table. Final amount, $12,150. A sticky note on top read, completion bonus retroactive adjustment, $80,000. See page 2. Travis opened his mouth, closed it again. Joel nodded. She stood, smoothed her blazer, and walked out of the office without looking back. And as the doors closed behind her, only thing they saw was their reflection, and the faint outline of their own failure mirrored in glass. 1 week later, Joel was gone. The board didn't host a farewell party. No cake, no press release. Just a terse internal email from legal that read like a eulogy for a man still standing. Effective immediately, it said. "We thank him for his contributions." Translation: "You cost us a 6-figure outage and made us look like clowns. Goodbye." Travis didn't get off scot-free either. He was laterally repositioned to something called Strategic Partner Initiatives, a corporate broom closet where failing VPs go to wait out their non-competes. His LinkedIn update read like denial in bullet points. Meanwhile, the fix she'd implemented, solid, elegant, untouched since she walked out. The platform stabilized in under 48 hours. Login flows normalized. Sessions were consistent. Clients stopped screaming into customer service lines. Some even praised the smooth new experience, unaware it had nearly been torpedoed by ego and greed. She watched it unfold from her new coworking space. Same view, different table. Her inbox bloomed with recruiter pings. 3 startups wanted her. One VC asked if she'd be open to a CTO role. Another offered her a blank check to just build whatever you want. But she already had, because while they were busy cleaning up her footprints, she was finalizing a platform of her own. Quietly, methodically, she'd partnered with a competitor in the same sector, one who had watched NextGen's flame out with equal parts horror and opportunity. Her new build was leaner, faster, designed to scale without duct tape. No legacy rot, no committee sabotage. It was already in private beta. It already worked. And it was launching next quarter. The timing was just right. That morning, she sent her final invoice to NextGen. It was simple, elegant, line items in black and white. Emergency consulting, 12 HRS, $10,800 diagnostics and recovery, $1,350 completion bonus, retroactive, per contractual milestone, $80,000. She didn't wait for them to respond. Didn't care if they argued. Didn't need the money. It was about the principle. The full-circle click of poetic justice, signed and time-stamped. Let them squirm under fluorescent lights, wondering how they'd let her go and handed their future to someone who'd built a smarter one 2 blocks away. Let them remember her name, still printed in the API logs they never bothered to read. And as her competitor's launch date crept closer, one line echoed in her mind. They fired the architect, but she kept the blueprints. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.